Pac-10/12 media days are over, and there were some juicy nuggets from Commissioner George Kliavkoff about the Pac-12, Big 12 situation. Of course, this is of interest to nosotros. Quote, with respect to the Big 12 being open for business, I appreciate that. We haven't decided if we're going shopping there yet or not. Second quote, I've been spending 4 weeks trying to defend against grenades that have been lobbed in from every corner of the Big 12. Trying to destabilize our remaining conference, and I understand why they're doing it when you look at relative media value between the two conferences. I get it. I get why they're scared. I get why they're trying to destabilize us, but I was just tired of that. Third quote, you look at the metrics, you look at the numbers, and any way you cut and slice the numbers, you come to the conclusion that no Pac-12 school is going to the Big 12, end quote. Okay, what's your reaction to these three comments?
Look, I mentioned last week on Thursday when we wrapped up the show that I was really curious to hear what Commissioner Kliavkoff was going to say, because he had to nail this. And I have to say I was a bit surprised with the tone of it. Look, I understand he had to come out. Defensive? Well, I understand that he has to come out regardless of how he actually feels. Publicly, you have to come out and be as strong as you possibly can and as confident as you possibly can when you're in the situation that that conference currently is. The Big 12 is in that same situation a year ago, and we've seen the moves that they've made since. What I found a little odd that didn't hit with me was it's one thing to have the bravado and to go after and take these shots at other conferences when you're coming from a position of strength. To me, they're not coming from a position of strength, so it felt very empty to me. So those were my initial responses. I understand why he was doing it, but it sort of, at least from my point of view, fell on deaf ears because he's not in a position, or the conference, not necessarily him specifically, but the Pac-12 conference, in my opinion, is not in a position to be going out and puffing out its chest as if it's coming from a position of strength, because right now they're not.
Kliavkoff is mad at the wrong league. Obviously, the Big 12 lobbed some grenades with Brett Yormark, which I already love the guy. Never met him, don't know him. I love him already. Comes in, yes, we're open for business, let's go. Before he's even actually the commissioner of the league. Today is day one, as you mentioned in headlines. The Big Ten should be the primary target of the ire here.
Yes, they're the ones that are taking your two biggest brands.
Yes, they disrupted the flow here. Also, let's not forget that a year ago you had a chance, well, in decades of before this, chances to add teams that would have perhaps added or helped added value or helped stabilize the conference. He did not. BYU's been a team that's been wanting a Pac-12 invite, I think, for a long time. Obviously, Stanford and Cal and BYU, and we don't get along. We've chronicled that for a long time. I do love the open for business comment from Yormark, as I mentioned. I understand why the Pac-12 defended its place. I just hope you don't get freezing cold taken by the no Pac-12 school is going to the Big 12. Listen, if
But Jarom, they looked into each other's eyes, and they just knew that they were on the same page.
Many a couple at BYU has done the same thing and broken up or gotten divorced, okay? That is not a sign of truth or stability. The true alliance is when you look into someone's eyes, just like this. Yeah, now we're connected, right? So I get it. The Pac-12 is certainly in a precarious space just because it's the last conference to have been plucked from. Now, is any action going to actually be taken before the season starts? I don't think so. I think we're in football mode now, because teams are going into fall camps. It's not fall until September 21st, 22nd, whatever, summer camp, whatever. They're doing that now. I think we start to forget about everything but football right now. Now, recall that on what, this day in 2010, I believe, BYU was this Independence Day in 2010, I think, August 1st. It was around fall camp time.
Isn't it August 10th?
Maybe August 10th, okay, around this time. Generally speaking, besides that, we go into football mode now. So I don't think anything's going to happen here. What is happening, though, don't forget, 3 more days of exclusive negotiations with the existing primary rights holders of ESPN and Fox with the Pac-12. If they ink a TV deal, they stay together. That's for now, unless they have an out clause.
Sure.
And will Oregon and Washington and anybody else want a bigger piece of the pie? BYU upset its brothers in arms in the Mountain West by wanting a bigger piece of the pie, ultimately settling to go independent. When, in the Mountain West, it was like, wait, why are we getting like the same as Wyoming on the TV deal? That was a situation that certainly made sense, but you can also upset your other teams. Will the Pac-12 be okay that Wazoo and Oregon State get the same as Oregon and Washington in the new TV deal? I'm telling you.
Or is Oregon and Washington going to ask for a higher percentage than everybody else?
That's what I'm saying. Will they upset their brethren in this case? And this TV deal, I'm telling you, will tell us a lot about the stability or not of the league. Like, pay attention in the next couple of days, weeks, months, should they not come to a conclusion on the Pac-12 media rights deal. How many years is it? How much is it per year? That will tell us whether they're going to stay together or not. Well, and if they don't, obviously the Big 12's ready to get who wants to come to the Big 12.
What's interesting, and look, and we've touched on this, and I mentioned this a second ago, the Big 12 was in this exact same situation a year ago, and they were able to make decisions, quick decisions, that ultimately helped to strengthen the Big 12 as a conference. Now, the Pac-12 right now, as you said, it's the most recent one to go through this upheaval. So right now, they're the ones that are being looked at as the most unstable, and that's why I say that they are, because they're the ones that it's happened to last. They now have the opportunity to go and try and do what the Big 12 did a year ago, to try and strengthen their conference. Now, if they do that...
You're saying expand?
Whatever that looks
retain?
Like. Whatever it looks like, whether it's expansion, whether it's another grant of rights that locks teams in for a certain period of time, whatever they deem viable as the next step to maintain their conference, because that's clearly what they want to do. They clearly want to salvage the Pac-12, and quite frankly, I think that's good for college sports. You don't want to see a conference, especially a conference like the Pac-12, go away. Nobody wants to see that.
Obviously, being on this side of the Big 12 now, it's like, oh, we would like to strengthen our position in the league, no doubt. If you remove yourself from that,
but the Pac-12 now has a chance to do what they feel does the same thing that the Big 12 did a year ago, however that looks to them.
But can you retain and not expand and maintain and be okay? Because you're going to be the league with the fewest teams. The Big 12's been okay with 10 teams for a few years, so I'm not dismissing that idea. But as we continue to add teams to leagues and where they are getting into the 16 to 18 range, which is kind of where we're going, can a conference with only 10, granted the Big 12 will have actual 12 teams coming up here, is that enough to get the respect of the other leagues at the table when you're talking AQs, access, and so forth, of, yeah, we're fine with that, even though we have 16 teams and we perceive our league to be better than yours? Or in the expanded playoff discussion, which is I'm referring to, do you just go, we don't have AQs, okay? You don't automatically get in. You got to earn your way in. Because if I'm the Big 10 or the SEC, I go, well, wait a minute. We have like 3 teams stronger than your best team, is what they're probably thinking. So it gets a little interesting that way. I wonder if the Pac-12/10 feels like they need to add, because everybody has added to reinforce. No one has just stayed put after they lost.
And it's where San Diego State, which we talked about last week, really comes into play.
Yes, and then who else?
That's the other question.
Because generally you have an even number for obvious reasons with traveling and divisions and whatnot. We'll see if divisions even exist with the news we heard this summer with the NCAA said you can determine who you have in your championship game in football.
Well, look, you asked the question a second ago, do we expect anything to happen before the season starts? And I think the answer is probably no. Now we may get something on the grant of rights,
expansion,
but in terms of expansion, I don't see any other teams leaving one conference to another, wherever that is. If it's Pac-12 to the Big 12, Big 12 to the Pac-12, whatever the scenario is, I don't see any teams leaving the conference they are currently in before the season starts. No, I don't.
And the grant of rights, they could even wait on. This is just the initial window, because they have until, what, 24? So
this was just an early window they opened up by themselves.
To lock in so that no one leaves, so that the Big 12 doesn't come in and get the 4 corners or whatever. Well, but all it takes is 2 teams. Like, they need to lock that in as soon as
and they're talking about shorter terms. You're not talking about a 15-year agreement like the ACC had.
You'd be idiotic.
They're talking about like anywhere between 3 and 5 or 5-7 at the most.
The ACC has shown us you don't want to do a long-term.
Exactly.
Just don't do it.
Yep.